this one, another one for Rick. Can you define morality without omniscience? I guess that's
fun. Okay.
Yeah.
You mean, I think what they're asking, I mean, you can define morality, it's that what you ought most to do. You don't need to be omniscient to do that, but I think what they're, if I understand,
It seems like they want to know why.
I think what the question is, like, yeah, do you have to know what the moral facts are? The question, and that's the difference between what the moral facts are and what you know them to be. And so it's possible for people to not know what the moral facts are, and of course that's a reality all the time. We often don't know exactly, like if there's the Gines, for example. The Gines think that if you even step on the tiniest little bug, you're destroying an entire universe, this whole creature, this life you're destroying. Now, if you imagine that every little gnat was actually was a human consciousness in there, and so every time you walked, you were killing thousands of people. Not knowing that, I mean, if you knew that, you would behave very differently. And so there's a question of, if you're not knowing it, you're just walking along, you don't know it. But that's the difference. You're talking about you just happen to not know it. And now, if you're a person who cares about things like that, you'll do your due diligence to make sure that if it's possible to know that you'll know it. And so that's where we talk about the difference between negligence and accident. So there's an accidental killing, or there's a killing that results from your negligence. So we can define this in law. But what is your responsibility to make sure that you know as much as you can know? You can never know everything, and so you can't always engage in perfect moral behavior. But you can engage in the moral behavior that you know to be moral, and you can do a due diligence to make sure that that's responsible knowledge to the extent that it's possible. And so that's possible. That's how it's possible for us to learn that we've made mistakes in the past as a species and as a society. So that we can actually realize, oh, you know what? That we were doing all this time, that was actually immoral. Oh, damn, now that we know that, we're going to change how we behave. And so it's like scientific knowledge. You don't have to know everything, but you want to know more and more to be better at it, essentially.
Well, I would argue that all of us can define morality. We can attach whatever definition we want to the word. And it's not the word that matters. It's whether what you're talking about actually exists or is true about the world. So a lot of times, if you look in the dictionary for morality, you might see, doing what's good, doing what's right, and those might be defined in terms of morality, and you end up in a giant circle with no idea what they're even talking about. Now, if morality is like that, if it's just something where no one means anything by it, then yes, none of us can make any factual, real-world claims about it. Just like if, someone says, what's a zizzophil? No one can say what it is, whether it exists, until you give some kind of definition. If you say, a zizzophil is a footable, and a zizzophil is a kind of footable, and a footable is something that's exemplified by zizzophils. You're still not getting anywhere. You still can't make any claims of whether either of those things exist. So I think with morality, you have to start by saying, how are you defining morality? And then you look at whether it's true of the world. So you don't have to be omniscient to simply define a word. You can define morality, and then you can examine it after you've defined it.
Yeah, I can actually pick on that, so you do the complete circle back, completing our whole point. Use the analogy of medicine, and I've done this before, where there are imperative statements in medicine that aren't moral statements per se. They're just what a surgeon ought to do to save his patient's life. And so there are things that surgeons don't know and didn't know. But there's a difference between what the surgeon knowing everything that he can know and doing what he ought to do so far as he knows it. But he also knows that he would love to know all the other things that he doesn't know. And so morality is like that. You can know some of morality and therefore get to be a better moral person in the same way a surgeon can get to be a better surgeon. You don't have to be omniscient. It's just omniscience would be the ideal state. Obviously, the surgeon would love to know every damn thing there is to know about how to save his patient, and a moral person would likewise want to know all the right decisions to make. So what we do is we do the best we can knowing that, and we actually pursue this knowledge and improve our knowledge of it. And that's the analogy holds over.
So this is my question. But it seems like you're still defining morality, the ultimate morality, with omniscience. If you are omniscient, then you would be the ultimate moral person.
Yeah.
Yeah, possibly. If you, let's say you as a human being became omniscient and perfectly rational, both those things occurred, then yes, I think you would be a perfectly moral person. However, if you were like a god who could never be harmed by anything, and you became omniscient, you would probably become perfectly immoral, because you could achieve satisfaction easily without regard for any harm or consequences to yourself. So I think that the morality is defined, it comes out of the facts of the world that we have to live a certain way in order to achieve the things we want. But God is removed from that requirement. And so if you had something like that, where you had omniscience and rationality, but no accountability and no consequences, you probably get a perfectly immoral creature. So
Well,
that's
what happened.
Yeah.
I wasn't talking about that.
Yeah,
I was just
I
talking
know,
about, you
it's-
were just, you were talking about knowing, having all the facts at your disposal to make a decision, to make a moral decision.
Yeah, well, it's like if a surgeon is facing a patient, the question is, how ought I behave to save this patient? And the surgeon will do his best given what he knows. But the truth may be something the surgeon doesn't know. I mean, right? So there could be something better the surgeon could have done. But the surgeon can do better than not knowing anything, right? The surgeon can learn some about the thing, so he can be a better surgeon without being a perfect surgeon. But he would prefer to be a perfect surgeon. If he could have that omniscience, he could be the perfect surgeon. So that's what I'm talking about. There are moral facts, just as there are true surgical facts that are unknown, that we need to discover, or that we would be better off having discovered if we would do it. So that's how I work that out.
Can I ask one?
Yes.
I think Dr. Carrier's claim that if someone is fully informed and rational, they would act perfectly morally, I think that's an extraordinary claim. And I don't think he's presented evidence for that claim tonight. And I've read a lot of his writings and looked into the sources he cites, and I don't think they make the case for that statement. And I'd just like to see some justification for it.
The justification for it is that if you're a human being, there are certain things you have to do to be happy. For example, achieving and realizing the benefits of compassion, the personal internal benefits of compassion, feeling the compassion and the joy and sharing the joy with people, and getting along in society, not having people gunning for you, not being thrown in jail, getting along with your neighbors, having that happy social experience. These are just the facts on the ground that we have to deal with to do this. So when you were fully informed and perfectly rational, you would know that the only way that you can maximize your happiness is to behave in a certain way. I mean, it follows necessarily. It's actually logically entailed by the facts, once you know the facts. And so if you were operating rationally, you would do that. Now, if we're going to talk about non-humans, or we're going to create an android or a computer or some weird alien, the facts might be different for them. And that might make a perfect monster rather than a perfect moral person. But we're not that. We're humans. So morality for us is about what it means to be the ideal human, the most successful human in that respect.
There's certainly a lot of moral traits that could lead us to have a better life than if we didn't have them. But I still haven't seen any reason to think that every single moral trait will make the individual better off. For example, what if someone lied in situations where it was advantageous for him or her to do so? I don't think we can just simply rule out the possibility that someone could be better off if they lie in certain situations. They might be otherwise honest, but there might be situations in which it benefits them to lie.
Yeah, and that's perfectly compatible with my moral theory. In fact, I've discussed some of this issue of moral lying and so forth in my book. So yeah, that's not actually a counterexample. I think we're cutting out a little here.